Before Ava Jones left her home in Evansville to catch the big train down here to Neapolis, she'd been so excited, telling all her friends about the job at the hotel that Uncle Nate had fixed up for her, and how she was looking forward to seeing the city at last, and imagining the good time she'd have when she got there. The day before she left, a friend of her late aunt came up to her and, quietly, pressed a card into her hand. "You find yourself in any trouble, honey," she said, "take this to the vid phone and call the number there. They'll help you out best they can." "Trouble?" said Ava. She wasn't anticipating trouble. She was heading off to the big city, like she'd always wanted to since Mama and Papa had died. Free at last. Money in her pocket, and all the big, wide verse to explore. "I'm a good girl. I ain't planning on getting into trouble." "Honey," said Aunt Eve's friend, "sometimes trouble comes looking for us. Take the card and make the call if you have to." So Ava took the card, and, showing some of the very good sense that her Auntie Eve had tried hard to instill in her while Ava was in her care, she had kept the card with a handful of other small treasures wrapped on her person, rather than stored in her little case. She wondered where that little case was now. All her clothes, including her best dress and best hat, had been in that little blue plastic case. She figured she wasn't seeing them ever again. And good hats and dresses don't fall out of the sky. But the card was safe, along with Mama's ring and the hollow images of Mama and Papa's wedding day and a little squishy toy bear called Patches. And it turned out she had cause to use this card after all. On a side street near the open market, Ava found a public vid phone and tried to work out what to do. Ava had never used anything like this in her life. She'd seen one, of course. She might be from the sticks, but she wasn't stupid, which more people ought to remember, particularly those trying to stick needles into arms. There was an old vid phone in the bar where Uncle Nate and his pals went drinking after their shift. But Ava doubted Uncle Nate had ever had reason to use such a thing either. Who was there to call? Everyone they knew was right there in Evansville. The street was quiet. Ava took off the owl mask and stared at the smooth, blank screen. Well, really, how hard could it be? She reached a finger out to tap the cool plastic, and the screen sprang into life. All bright colors and flashing lights. A little cartoon rabbit bounced past and made her laugh. First thing about this place to do so. The rabbit hopped down a hole and pulled a cover over its head. But before instructing Ava in no uncertain terms to eat juicy, fruity treats, maybe she would. The screen flickered and a soft voice said, "Insert card, insert card," over and over, until Ava obeyed, jamming the card into the only slot she could see. The display on the screen changed again. Some numbers, that was her credit, she guessed, and a list named contacts. There was only one name there. P.R. Quigley's Cleaning Services. 2 Chinese characters, but nobody had ever bothered to teach Ava how to read them. Was this really somebody who could help? She hoped so. She touched the characters and a green light flashed. "Connecting," said the voice. "Connecting." It said this over and over for a while, then said, "Disconnecting. Disconnecting." Ava tried again, and a third time, with the same unhappy results. So much for help. She looked down the street. The afternoon was wearing on, and a breeze picking up. Ava shivered. She was glad of the shawl, although she still felt bad about how she'd got it. "Thou shalt not steal," said the preacher, every weekend, although he did say some dumb things. Desperate times, she thought. Perhaps she'd be forgiven. She gave the number one last try. Connecting. Connecting. The green light stopped flashing and held still. A voice came through. No face. And sounding a little distorted. Who's this? My name's Ava, ma'am. How did you get this number? Mrs. Freeman, back in Evansville, where I'm from. She gave me it, ma'am. Said to call if I needed help. There was a pause. You need help? Ava couldn't reply at first. Couldn't put into words all that had happened. Are you still there, honey? Mrs. Freeman had called her that. So had Auntie Eve. Maybe Mama had too. Anyway, it helped. 2 men, Ava whispered, came at me. One of them had a needle. Please, she said. Help me. She began to cry. Okay. It's okay. Listen, honey. Wait where you are. I'll call you back in 20 minutes, you hear? Don't move, and don't miss the call. I'll call you back, I promise. The line went dead. Ava felt a cautious hope rise up. She stood by the vidphone, shawl covering her face, hoping that nobody else would come past, wanting to use it and take up the line. She watched the time tick past slowly on the screen. 15 minutes, 16, 17, 21, 22, 25. She was starting to think she'd been taken for a ride when the light on the screen started flashing green. Incoming. Incoming. Ava touched the screen and the voice came through. Is your card in the slot? Yes, ma'am. There's another number on there now. You need to call that number tomorrow morning. You need to call at the right time. Not before 10 and not after 10:30. Got that? Yes, ma'am. Tomorrow morning, not before 10, not after 10:30. They'll give you an address to go to. Tomorrow morning, not before 10, not after 10:30. The call ended. Before Ava could say, But what should I do for the rest of today, ma'am? What should I do for tonight? Ava looked around. All she could see was those big stone tenement buildings turning inwards. No help there. She wandered down the street, away from the market, and found herself walking through a little park. She sat down on a bench and watched a group of children flying their kites. Dragons and hawks and spaceships. Ava had never flown a kite. There hadn't been much time for that kind of thing back home. But something about the children's laughter made her think of Mama and Papa, long gone, and Auntie Eve, who had always been kind, and she felt tears welling up. She shook herself. She was 14, grown up. She wasn't a kid anymore. The kites caught in the breeze. The kids laughed when they lifted higher, shrieked when they swooped, groaned when they took a tumble down to the ground. After a while, they stopped and opened up a picnic. Ava watched, trying to ignore her own hunger. She hadn't eaten since early this morning, just before the train arrived in Neapolis. And she didn't have any money. When the kids finished eating, they played a running game for a while, but the day was growing colder, the sun was getting cooler, and at last their grown-ups rounded them up to head home. The park was emptying. Ava got up and found a huge tree, its branches coming down to the ground like a tent, and snuck underneath. After about 20 minutes, one of the security staff lifted the branches. Bad luck, sweetheart, he said. We're wise to this spot. I just need a place to sleep for the night, Ava said. Just one night. You ain't gotta go home. I'm here for Carnival, working. You ain't found a bed? The boarding house got mixed up. Funny how quick the lies came out. Once you started stealing, lying. Preacher Wiley, if ever he found out, would tell Uncle Nate to use his strap on her. Someone else has the bed tonight. Well, I'm sorry, sweetheart, but if I let you stay here, I'll be the one looking for work in the morning. But where should I? He shrugged. She could see he wasn't going to let her make herself his problem, so she gave up and let him lead her to the gate. She watched him set the security codes, and the force barriers went up. She wouldn't get back in there, so she turned and walked away. Cities have a twilight time between the late afternoon and the evening, when the daytime businesses have wound down, but the nighttime pleasures have barely begun. Those who have finished for the day have gone home and are settling down comfortably to supper and bed. Those who are going back out again are not yet ready to hit the town. There's an hour or two when a city is neither one thing nor the other, where a girl wandering stands out. Someone without a destination, someone without a place. As Ava walked, she felt more and more conspicuous, easier and easier to find. She needed somewhere to hide for the night. Be strong, she thought. Be brave. She turned a corner and found herself back in the market square. The place was very different now, empty and disheveled. All the buyers long gone. Whoever remained of the vendors packing up their wares ready to be on their way. Ava wandered past the grubby stalls, the canopies flapping in the breeze. This wasn't what the city was supposed to be like. The city was supposed to be her big chance, her way out of the grind of poverty that was life out on Evansville. Ava wasn't afraid to work. She'd worked most of her life, and she'd come here ready and willing to do what was needed. But she wasn't willing to be hurt. And Auntie Eve had always said to her, "You don't let anyone take advantage, honey." All I have to do, thought Ava, is get through tonight. Tomorrow, someone will come. Someone will help. Surely. Across the square, lights were twinkling. Ava followed their lead back to the shrine, where her candle was still burning, the small flame dancing in the breeze. It turned out that shrine stood a little in front of the wall, and there was a small space there, sheltered by the trees that stood on either side. Ava slipped into the gap. Hardly comfortable, but maybe she could spend the night here unnoticed. That was all she wanted, to lie low, be quiet, make it through the next day without being found. She curled up, resting her head upon her hands. She listened to the wind and stared up through the leaves. The lights on the boughs of the trees were twinkling like stars, like hope or freedom.